Namaskar, everyone. I hope you all are doing well and ready to embark on a fascinating journey towards the cosmic blueprint of ancient India and how the five elements shaped India's environmental imagination. Let's explore together. Imagine for a moment that the earth is not just a place we inhabit, but a vast living organism where every element from the soil beneath our feet to the air we breathe is part of an intricate cosmic dance. In Indian thought, this very idea is central to understanding how we relate to the world around us. The concept of five elements earth, water, fire, air, and ether is far from abstract. These elements were seen not only as a fundamental building blocks of nature, but as cosmic forces that govern everything from the structure of the universe to our daily lives. Ancient India didn't simply live on the land, it lived with it, guided by the wisdom of the five elements. Today, I will take you on a journey through the cosmic blueprint, how these five elements shaped not just the environment but an entire worldview. We will explore how traditional Indian agriculture, urban planning, and agriculture were all designed in perfect harmony with nature's elements. From the layout of cities that mirrored celestial alignments to farming practices that nurtured the soil, every facet of life was inspired by elemental forces of the universe. But it's not just about the past. We will also discuss how these ancient principles are more relevant today than ever. In a world facing environmental challenges, the five elements offer us a timeless guide to sustainable living where our actions align with nature's rhythm. It's an invitation to think beyond technology and reconnect with the wisdom of the cosmos to create a future that's not just for us but for the planet as a whole. So, as we dive into this fascinating journey, ask yourself what if the ancient blueprint for living with the earth could hold the key to solving the climatic crisis today? In Indian worldview, the environment is not merely a resource, it's a sacred cosmos. Everything in nature is alive, conscious, and interconnected. The foundational view is rooted in the concept of Panch Mahabhutas, the five great elements earth, water, fire, air, and ether. These are not just physical elements, but cosmic principles that permeate all aspects of life. Today's talk explores how these five elements have deeply shaped India's ecological ethics, architectural styles, ritual practices, and patterns of land use. From the orientation of temples to the design of stepwells, from fire rituals to monsoon festivals, we will see how this elemental framework created a civilizational blueprint that was inherently ecological, sustainable, and harmonious. Let's begin with Prithvi or Earth. In the Atharva Veda's Bhumi Shukta, Earth is not merely soil or land. It is venerated as a mother, the nourisher of all life. This hymn describes Earth as patient, generous, and sacred, reminding us that to use her resource is also to take part in deeply spiritual relationship. Agriculture in ancient India was not just a livelihood. It was an act of reverence. Plowing, sowing, and harvesting were ritualized with chants and offerings to ensure harmony with nature. Land use was never seen in isolation from nature's cycle. It was tied closely to fertility, sustainability, and a deep sense of gratitude. Today, if we revisit these ideas, we can find clues for sustainable land management, urban farming, and green architecture. Reclaiming the sacredness of soil may be the first step towards ecological restoration in our cities. Water, or up, is considered the very flow of life in Indian tradition. It's not just a resource, it's sacred. Rivers like the Ganga and Yamuna are revered as living goddesses, embodiments of purity and spiritual cleansing. Their presence is both geographical and divine. In daily life, rituals involving water, such as bathing before prayer, sprinkling water in purification rites, or immersing idols, symbolize both physical and spiritual renewal. This underscores a deep ecological ethic. To pollute water is to disrespect the divine. Architecturally, India reflects this reverence through temple tanks and stepwells. Ingenious structures that store water sustainably while also serving as places of ritual. These reflects an environmental intelligence attuned to monsoon rhythms and seasonal cycles. The worship of water in India is at its core an act of ecological conservation, urging harmony with nature through reverence and responsibility. Fire, or Agni, holds a central place in Indian tradition, both sacred and practical. It is the core of yagya or Vedic fire rituals where offerings are made to deities through flames. Even today, most Indian households maintain a home altar where a lamp or flame represents purity and presence of the divine. Fire is seen as purifier, burning away impurities, not just physically but spiritually. It acts as a bridge between realms, carrying our prayers to the God during rituals and symbolizing the cycle of life and death in cremation ceremonies. Beyond ritual, fire was managed with skill and mindfulness in cooking, metallurgy, and craft production. It was never taken for granted. Traditional Indian metallurgy, for instance, thrived by understanding fire's behavior and respecting its power. In all these uses, fire was never just a tool, it was a living presence to be engaged with reverence, responsibility, and restraint. Air, or Vayu, is more than just a physical element in Indian thought, it's pran, the vital life force. In yoga and Ayurveda, pran is that subtle energy we take in through breath. Our breath is not just a physiological act, it's deeply spiritual, connecting us to the universe. Ancient Indian science recognized the health giving power of air. That's why traditional temple architecture was designed to allow for natural ventilation. Temples were not just places of worship, they were spaces for healing and balance where the air circulated freely to enhance physical and spiritual well being. In Ayurveda, the concept of Vata, Pitta, Kapha, all three dosas is closely tied to the balance of wind energy in the body. Now, Vata, governed by air and space, regulates movement and communication within the body. Any disturbance in Vata disturbs our overall health. So, in Indian knowledge systems, air is not individual or passive. It's dynamic, intelligent, and healing and must be protected and harnessed wisely. Now we come to Akash or ether, the subtlest of the five elements. In Indian cosmology, Akash is the element of space and vibration. It is the medium through which sound travels, and in fact, sound or shabd is considered the first and most sacred expression of the creation. This is why Om and other mantras hold such a central place in Indian traditions. They are not just a spiritual expression, but vibrational tools that align our inner self with the universe. When we chant, we are turning into the energy of Akasha. Akash also represents mental space, the inner field of consciousness, and the cosmic space in which all creation unfolds. That is why it's deeply linked with both introspection and universal order. In Indian architecture and planning, especially in Vastu Shastra, this understanding of Akash guides spatial alignment. Spaces are arranged to support positive energy flow, ensuring harmony between the physical structure and the cosmic field it exists within. So, Akash teaches us to respect space not just as emptiness but as sacred potential. Let's now explore how the concept of Panch Mahabhutas is deeply embedded in Indian temple architecture. Temples in India are not just places of worship, they are cosmic diagrams designed as mandals that represent the microcosm of the universe. And each part of the temple is aligned with cosmic energies and reflects the interplay of the five elements. They are typically aligned with the cardinal directions, ensuring harmony with natural forces like sunlight, wind flow, and magnetic energy. This was not just aesthetic, it was a spiritual science rooted in the Indian worldview of living in sync with nature. The elements are mapped into the temple's very structure. For instance, the Garbhagriha or the Sanctum Sanctorum represents Prithvi, solid, stable, and grounding. The Shikhar, rising above, symbolizes sky or Akash, upliftment, the spiritual beyond. The Mandap facilitates the circulation of Vayu and resonates with Akash. Water is found in temple tanks or rituals, and Agni is present in lamps, rituals, and the divine spark within. So the temple is not just built of stone, it is built of earth, water, fire, air, and ether, woven into a sacred geometry that connects the human to the divine. Now we will see the concept of Panch Mahabhutas and its interlinkages with the environmental ethics. The Indian worldview does not separate the environment from ethics, it sees them as deeply interwoven. At the heart of this is the Panch Mahabhuta framework, which teaches that harmony among the five elements like earth, water, fire, air, and ether is essential for the well being of both land and society. This balance was not just theoretical, it was ritually and culturally practiced. Ritual cycles such as seasonal festivals and agriculture observances were designed to synchronize human activity with natural rhythms. These practices helped maintain ecological balance, honored the land, and ensured sustainable use of resources. Sacred spaces like groves, forests, river banks, and even certain mountains were protected through dharma or moral duty. These areas were considered abodes of divinity and untouchable by exploitation. This form of conservation, guided by reverence rather than regulation, offers a powerful lesson for today's environmental ethics. So, the Panch Mahabhutas not only shaped the spiritual and physical world, but also brought forward a moral geography that prioritized balance, sustainability, and respect for all forms of life. Now we will see the linkage between the agriculture and the five elements. Agriculture in ancient India was not merely an economic activity, it was a sacred collaboration with nature. Deeply aligned with the Panch Mahabhutas, the five great elements. Each stage of farming acknowledged and honored these elemental forces. Sowing rituals were performed with mantras and offerings to the earth, recognizing Prithvi or soil as a living, nurturing entity. Rain invoking yagya, such as the Varuna or Indra yagya, were conducted to respectfully call upon water for timely monsoons. This was not superstition, it was a symbolic way of aligning human actions with natural rhythms. And farming was seen as cooperation with elemental cycles, not control over them. The health of crops depended on maintaining a balanced relationship with fire for ripening, air for pollination and respiration, and even Akash as the unseen space in which everything unfolds. Soil and water were not just resources, they were sacred agents of life. This perspective encouraged sustainable practices long before such terms existed, like crop rotation, soil rest, and water harvesting were integral parts of this elemental dialogue. So, in this way, ancient Indian agriculture embodied a cosmic contract, a promise to work with nature, not against it. Now we will see the concept of urban planning at its linkages with elements. Urban planning in ancient India was not just functional, it was philosophical. Cities like Jaipur, famously designed by Maharaja Savai Jai Singh in the 18th century, were laid out based on Vastu Shastra, which incorporates the Panch Mahabhutas to ensure elemental harmony. The entire city was designed as a living mandal, aligning structures with cardinal directions and balancing Prithvi through Joni, Agni through sunlight access, and Vayu through natural ventilation corridors. Towns were often planned with prevailing wind directions in mind, placing residential and public zones to optimize cooling in hot climates. Agni was managed not only through sunlight but also by orientation, like kitchens and sacred hearths faced particular directions for thermal balance. Public structures like temples and palaces incorporated jalis, or you can say the perforated stone screens, and courtyards to facilitate airflow. Water was central to urban life. Temple tanks, step wells, and reservoir were not just religious structures, they regulated the seasonal water cycle, supported groundwater recharge, and provided climate control. Even drainage system reflected a respect for the flow and purity of water. The elemental consciousness ensured that urban ecosystems were resilient, regenerative, and rooted in cosmology. It is a model modern smart cities can learn from, where planning is not just technical but deeply ethical and even ecological. Now we will see the linkage between the cosmology and calendars. In the Indian tradition, time was never abstract. It was woven into the fabric of the cosmos and deeply tied to the Panch Mahabhutas. The nakshatras or lunar constellations were used to track time and guide everything from agricultural cycles to rituals, making the sky a living calendar. The Panchang or traditional calendar reflects this elemental spatial logic. It's a composite of solar, lunar, and planetary movements, intricately tied to the five elements: fire in the sun's energy, water in the lunar tides, air in the seasonal winds, earth in the harvest cycle, and ether in the unseen vibrations of the cosmic order. Now, solstices and equinoxes were not mere astronomical events, they were markers of sacred geography, aligning festivals and pilgrimages to cosmic rhythms. For example, Makar Sankranti celebrated during the sun's northward transition or Uttarayan marks a turning point in both agriculture and spiritual practices. Temples and rituals were designed to mirror these celestial alignments, grounding cosmic time into lived space. This calendrical system reveals a profound eco-cosmological consciousness, where timekeeping was not just practical but deeply philosophical, linking heaven and earth, human and element, past and future into a cycle of dharma. Now we will see Panch Mahabhutas in Ayurveda. In Ayurveda, the human body is seen as a microcosm, a reflection of the larger universe composed of the five elements or Panch Mahabhutas. Now, each element plays a distinct physiological role. Prithvi forms the structures, bones, muscles, and tissues, Water flows as plasma, saliva, and other bodily fluids. Fire governs digestion and metabolism. Air controls all movements from breath to nerve impulses. And Akash creates space for mental and emotional processes. Health, therefore, is defined not as the absence of disease, but as the harmonious balance of these internal elements. The three doshas, Vat, air plus ether, Pit, fire plus water, and Kaph, earth plus water, are dynamic representations of elemental combinations, and every Ayurvedic treatment aims to restore elemental equilibrium. For instance, a person with excess pitta or fire might be prone to inflammation and treated with cooling herbs and water based therapies. So, Ayurveda offers an ecological model of the body where maintaining balance within reflects and supports harmony with the outer world. The same elements that shape rivers, seasons, and forests also flow through our veins, breathe, and thoughts, reminding us that wellness is a cosmic contract between nature and self. Today, as we face growing environmental challenges, the wisdom of our ancestors offer valuable insights. At the core of this ancient knowledge is a concept that we call ecological humility. This is the understanding that we are not separate from nature but deeply interconnected with it. In recent years, we have seen a resurgence of practices that reflects this ethos, like rainwater harvesting. So, in ancient India, this was a common method of conserving water, viewed not just as a resource but as a sacred gift. It's a practice that, if revived today, could significantly help address our modern water crisis. And the another example is the revival of sacred groves. These are areas protected by local communities, often due to religious or cultural beliefs, and they hold a diverse range of plant and animal life. Reconnecting with this tradition offers a chance to safeguard biodiversity while bringing forward the ecological stewardship. Then there is the shift towards natural farming. It's a return to a holistic, dharma centric approach to agriculture, one that nurtures the soils, preserves water, and sustains both the land and the farmer. So, this is not just farming, it's a profound relationship between the farmer and the earth, grounded in respect and balance. So, this thermocentric environmentalism emphasizes a lifestyle in harmony with the earth cycle, guided by principles of respect, balance, and sustainability. Today, as we revive these practices, we also revive a deeper understanding of our place in the natural world, a lesson much needed for the times we live in. So, the concept of Panch Mahabhutas, earth, water, fire, and ether, was never abstract in ancient Indian thought. These elements were not mere philosophical ideas, they were foundational to how communities interacted with their environment. They shaped not just spiritual practices, but practical ways of living in harmony with the land. In ancient India, the Panch Mahabhutas were seen as building blocks of life, guiding everything from agriculture to architecture. The positioning of buildings, the design of temple, and even the selection of farming techniques were influenced by the balance of these elements. Now, as we face the urgency of climate change, there is a crucial need to bridge this ancient wisdom with today's environmental challenges. In closing, I leave you with a final thought. To care for the earth is to align with the cosmos. Thank you.